wickets for Sophia Kilston, unbeaten 29 for Deandra Doughton, and that headlined Trailblazers win over Velocity by 9 wickets. Here on Avenir presents the Outside View part by WTF Sports. We dissect the second match for you. I have Gouher Sultana and Ananya Upendran with me. Gouher, your first views about this game. Remember 7.5 overs, no wickets for Ekta Bisht.
Yeah, probably. I think she would have got a wicket or two had she opened the innings. She's been brilliant with the new ball most of the time whenever she's bowled. So probably she was gotten a bit late, and by that time I think Deandra Doughton settled in, and she had that thing to go after Ektabesh. So yeah.
49-run joke perhaps might not go entirely out of the frame because Trailblazers ended up scoring 49 for 1 in 7.5 overs. And it seemed as if Deandra Doughton, as she batted longer, that the pitch had eased up. Or was it actually the case, or do you think it's just because of the target in front of them?
Well, I think it was probably a bit of both. I think she also gave herself a bit of time. We saw early on where she was trying to force the pace against Shikha Pandey, and the ball wasn't really coming on. It was sticking in the surface, and she was kind of just chipping the ball up in the air rather than being able to power it into the stands. So I think, because she batted out those first 5 overs, she gauged the pace of the wicket and then was able to go after the spinners. I think that's probably what helped her score more freely towards the end. It didn't look like the pitch really eased out. There was absolutely no pace in it. We saw even when Richa Ghosh was driving on the up, there was nothing in the ball. So I think it was just that she gave herself a little more time to settle in.
Gouher, would you think Mithali got it tactically wrong a bit? Because remember in the innings break, we were also discussing about how effective it could have been, probably been, we don't know for sure, if Leah Kasparek and Ekta Bisht could have opened, or even for that matter, Sushri Divyadarshini, because having a left-hand, right-hand combination means that you can actually try and use bowlers who take the ball away from both the batter. So do you think that is somewhere where Velocity and Mithali Raj missed the trick?
Probably, I wouldn't say it was wrong, but no, I think the way Shikha bowled and the way the Kasparek bowled to Doughton and also to Smriti Mandhana, I think they didn't give away anything in those first 2 overs of what they bowled. But probably Mithali could have tried, bowling one each over to a new bowler in the power play, just to not let the batsman settle down, because 2 overs or more, probably 3 overs from Shikha Pandey and 2 from Kasparek maybe helped Deandra Doughton to settle her eye in, and then later on go for those runs. So probably 1 over each in the power play for a different kind of bowlers would have definitely got them to adjust the pace of the ball.
Right, we were talking about how rough the schedule is for Velocity. Remember, they stay in Dubai. They have to travel to Sharjah for the matches and head back to Dubai. And Mithali's side, Velocity, played a game last night. It was a close finish. That's why it extended till almost the last ball of the 20th over. And today they are in the afternoon playing the match. Ananya, not looking at it from a point of excuse, but is it really tough? Because as sports persons, we expect people to stand up and deliver, no matter what the conditions are, no matter what the circumstances are. And there'll always be talks about the long break that had preceded this tournament. Having said all of that, having considered all of that, you still think it's a bit rough, and it's tough on teams to travel from one place to another, play back-to-back games, especially in the heat of the UAE.
I mean, it's definitely rough on them. I think you put that break aside, but just forget about 7 months. I think when you train after 3 months, when you're bowling full tilt after 3 months, the next morning your body is sore. So I think going into a game, match intensity after, say, a 7-month break, and you barely have 12 hours to recover. So, they would have reached their hotels in Dubai at midnight, and then probably had to leave late morning to get to the ground again in Sharjah. And while you can say, oh, maybe they finished at around 10 p.m. in Sharjah last night, you have to consider the traveling time. The traveling makes your body tired as well. It's not rest as such. So I think there are a lot of things. It is rough scheduling, but as athletes you kind of can't complain. I mean, Mithali Raj herself said it, that it is less time for the body to recover, but these girls are going to take any playing time that they can get. At the end of the day, they wanted to get back onto the field. They wanted to play some cricket, and while I'm sure they're very, very grateful to have returned, it is rough on the body, and you could tell. I mean, they didn't really turn up. I think while maybe mentally their mind was telling them, okay, you have to do this, I don't think the body really responded. They weren't The batters, you could tell, were very jaded. I think with the ball they probably had some time to kind of consider their plans and figure out what they wanted to do, but it was harsh on them, and it's not an excuse, but yeah, I think looking back, it's probably something that's hurt them.
Let's have a quick glance at this match summary. Velocity, of course, remember, had chosen to bat, which means Trailblazers did not actually get the choice of what they wanted to do first up, and they were sort of put in that hot afternoon sun at Sharjah. And they delivered, and they more than just well. 47 all-out velocity with 4 wickets for Sophie Eccleston, 2 for Rajeshwari Gaikwad. Given that Trailblazers didn't have the first choice of what they wanted to do, their bowling performance perhaps is all the more great because of that factor, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's sometimes better when you don't have a choice, and probably they're ready for the first game, and they were ready for whether to bat first or second. And Juludi, as usual, she's got that whole lot of experience, and that really showed when she came up there and got Shefali Verma the first breakthrough for the Trailblazers. And then Sophie Eccleston, of course, standing out and proving herself why she's the world #1 left arm spinner.
And Julan has not once, not twice, but more than that, told everybody that she wants to play that World Cup in 2022, the one that's postponed now. And her bowling did more than well to show how eager she is to do those two no balls notwithstanding. Ananya, how do you rate her rhythm, her loading, her bowling overall?
Oh, well, I think she looked great. She was, bounding in, and she looked as fit as I've seen her for a really long time. And I think that's a big plus. She spoke a lot through the lockdown that she was, really looking to work on her fitness, and that she wanted to. That she's very keen on playing that 2022 World Cup, and she'll do everything she can to, make sure she gets there. And that's exactly what we were able to see. That this was a very lean, very, very fit-looking Jhulan Goswami bounding in and bowling like she always has, through her career. She hit the right areas from the very beginning. She's probably someone who, if you wake her up in the middle of the night, will be able to bowl a ball on that good length area. And that's exactly what she did. She gave absolutely nothing away, attacked that off stump, and I think she just frustrated Shefali into trying something that she didn't want to. And she led from the front.
Our parting thoughts during the mid-innings program was about Sushri Divyadarshini Gouher. With how much little we watched her bowl, 1 over for 9 runs. What were you impressive with the way she went about her execution? Even though she might not have got wickets, she might not have had enough runs to get wickets or put pressure. Whatever you saw today of Sushri Divyadarshini, how happy were you?
I think probably she didn't really look, that ready, or maybe that or spot on in her first game, but we cannot really doubt about her ability to toss up the ball and get the rhythm going. But this is pretty harsh on her because she's also coming in from like everybody else, and she's not got the first game, and she's bowling under a lot of pressure, having just a small total. And then you have few bowlers going. Diana Doughton was trying to go after them, so probably maybe if they try to get a final, get a game, well, maybe she'll be much better then, and she'll show what she can do.
It's very easy for us to sit in hindsight and dissect what went wrong or what was probably the thing that went wrong for a side or right for the other, Ananya. But having said that, that's what we are here for. Do you think the first 6 overs in the power play where Velocity ended up losing 22 for 5, is that really the thing that changed the game, or was there something else apart from that?
Well, I think when you lose 5 wickets in the power play, it's really hard to come back. You have to have someone playing a spectacular innings, to find your way back into the game. Yes, you do have time on your side, but remember the quality of batters coming in at number 7 and 8 are not necessarily going to be the best. Velocity did have some capable players coming in at that point. I thought Shikha Pandey and Lee Kasparik looked good. They looked like they were willing to battle it out, and were willing to probably play the waiting game at that point. But like I said, I think it's hard to come back when you've lost all your top batters in that power play, and you have a bowling side that. I mean, Salma Khatun only came in towards the end of that innings, and every time I looked up, I was like, okay, she's still not bowling, and she's one of the best bowlers in the world. So, to think that they had that quality of bowling that they didn't have to utilize until very late in the innings, I think it was that power play it was the beginning and the end for Velocity. And I think, Trailblazers from that, I think it was the third over that Jhulan Goswami got that first wicket. So from then, they just bossed the game, and there was really no coming back.
And for every one of you watching, just pop in and shoot your questions, your comments about this match, or for the Women's T20 Challenge. Our panelists will be happy to answer it. But coming to this game, Gouher, how much can you really assess how well Rajeshwari Gaikwad, Deepti Sharma, or even Salma Khatun for that matter bowled, given that the initial damage was already done by Jhulan and Sophie Eccleston?
Yeah, I mean, they had nothing much to do after those early breakthroughs and that brilliant spell from Sophie Cliston and Jhulan Goswami. But it's important, like for them, like all of them had the first game coming up, and it is important to bowl in the right areas, whoever the batsman they're facing. And they did that. All the three of them, Deepti, Rajeshwari, and Salma, they were good with the line and length, and probably they were not in under any kind of pressure. But probably, yeah, Rajeshwari was pretty good with her. That actually, Deepti and Rajeshwari, both with the cotton balls, I think they looked ready to battle out.
Spinners and their ability to take cotton balls and get appreciation from a fellow spinner, never count that out. But having had having watched the IPL for all this while, it's a matter of one or two players and their positions getting changed for team results to change overall. And looking at how Velocity have performed in the first two matches, Ananya, do you think? I mean, again, it's in hindsight. Do you think a shuffling of a batting order or different personnel in different positions could have made a difference? Because the likes, it seems it's a side that's top heavy. Your firepower is in Wyatt and Shefali Verma, and then lower down it's Suneli's kind of innings that we saw yesterday. But otherwise, it's largely a setup that kind of likes to take its time, get into the groove before being explosive, before being destructive. So was that a case for them to try and shuffle the batting order, perhaps put a Wyatt or Verma in the middle order?
Well, I think with someone like Danny Wyatt, I'm not too sure whether she would like starting against spin, starting against a softer ball. I think both Shefali and Daniel Wyatt are the kind of players who like the harder new ball because it travels quicker to the boundary. You don't have to. You probably rely more on timing, of course, and I think it would be, tough on them to say, we'd want to move you lower down the order. I mean, of course, in conditions like this, it would be very nice to probably have a Mithali Raj open up and alongside maybe Shefali and allow her to settle in, have the cushion of having someone like Danny Wyatt, maybe at number 3 or 4. But I think that's a harsh call on someone like Danny Wyatt, who is very successful as an opener for England and has scored a lot of runs in India when you look at her record. So, she's successful on wickets like this, which means she plays spin pretty well. But I think it would probably be a good idea to kind of try and shuffle the order around, but it's hard to find, who you would bring down. I think that's the biggest question, because both of them are very successful in the opening slot, and it's hard to shift either of them out of it. I wouldn't shift Shefali out of the opening position simply because she doesn't need to bat anywhere else. She's going to bat at the top of the order for India. And if you're looking at this as a development tournament for India, you would want her to bat, where she's going to bat for your country. So I think the only option is shifting Danny Wyatt lower down and probably pushing Mithali Raj up there. But it comes up to the same thing where you have the Sushma Vermas, the Sunyalis, Leah Kasparik and Shikha Pandey, having to control that lower middle order. I think they probably expect a lot from Shikha Pandey in terms of providing power to that lower order. I think that's what they would want her to do. A Sunyalis and a Shikha Pandey would probably be expected to do that now that they've seen Sushma Verma also being able to hit those sixes, not just through mid-wicket, but straight as well. I think that's what they're looking at. So the Mithali Rajas and Veda Krishnamurtis probably stabilize and bat longer through the innings, whereas these guys come in lower down and explode. And it didn't happen today, but I think if they make the final, fingers crossed, either Trailblazers win or net run rate is on their side. But I think they'll back this batting order.
It's a wonderful point that you made, that if they make to the final, because we've always been talking about the format, that it's a one-time round robin type of a tournament where Velocity have played their 2 matches. The results, whether if they proceed to the final or not, will depend on what happens tomorrow on Saturday when Trailblazers and Supernovas clash. And that brings me to this topic as to whether this format is the right way to judge this tournament, judge the players in this tournament, or judge women's cricket for that matter. Because no matter how many T20 World Cup finals we have, like the one we had earlier this year, or no matter how many World Cup finals like we had in 2017 we have, it's always about, is women's cricket good enough to have a standalone tournament, especially in Indian domestic cricket. So whether we still are talking about whether we should have a women's IPL and so on and so forth. So does especially considering all that and considering the way Velocity have performed 2 matches in 2 days and they're almost done, does this call for having at least 2 round robin or 3 round robin matches before the final? Gouher?
Absolutely. I mean, it's very tough on players, to play those back-to-back games within 24 hours, and also on the teams. It's pretty tough on the teams because all the 3 teams just playing 1 game each, and they're coming after a break, and they have foreign players. The captains have to deal with the foreign players and the youngsters. So for them to settle down a bit, I think they could have probably have 2 round robins before the final, so that team can probably have a comeback. In this tournament, I think there is no room for comeback. I think whenever you play, you just have to win every game to make it to the final. Probably two games or 3 games for a team would let them settle their batting order, or learn from the last game and go into the next game, which was not the case in this tournament. Probably next year or something, we'll see more of the matches before the final takes place.
At Ananya, we all sometimes such games, the low scoring ones are. It's actually normal in any big tournament. If you see, there are these kind of games. So does a format change kind of at least tell you that the first time watcher, for example, someone who might have tuned in today, might say, well, this is how women play. This is not the kind of cricket that I or would like to watch. So will the format change or the lengthier format change and be better for women's cricket?
It certainly gives people more of an opportunity to to watch the women play, and it's only if you watch the women play will you become a fan somehow. So I think an extended number of games for the teams will also allow them to kind of settle on a combination. And I think what's very important in this case is, with you have a squad of 14 or 15 players, and in two games it's really hard to give them all an opportunity. You're obviously going to play each one to win, and of course not in every tournament are players going to get an opportunity. It's also a chance for the youngsters to learn from those around them, but I think there's less room for experimentation. There's very little margin for error in this kind of a format. So just to have an extended, I suppose, tournament also means that the best team gets through. It's not a matter of one bad game. I think Velocity would probably want to write this off as one bad game, but that's something that they cannot do because their tournament is pretty much out of their hands right now, and I think that's very unfortunate because they had a rough deal and now they've had one bad game. And I suppose the win in the first game, although it came out of the blue, was very important simply because of this. So that you need to get off to a good. It's like hitting. You have to hit the ground running. And Smriti Mandana said this in her press conference that there's so much pressure on the players who are coming back after such a long break to have to hit the ground running. There's no chance to ease into a tournament which you would normally do. So I think an extended, more teams, an extended, more rounds will, one, make sure that the best teams go through, and will also provide more opportunities to players, which is at the end of the day what we want.
Fair point. Remember, viewers, send in your comments and questions, and we can take them after we preview the next match. Remember, Velocity won the toss, were bowled out for 47, and Trailblazers coasted home in style. So let's look at the third match of Women's T20 Challenge, where Trailblazers and Supernovas take on each other on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. IST. Remember, the tournament is not dead. That's not a dead rubber. You don't know which side is going to be playing the final because all three sides are still in the competition because of Velocity's loss today. Had Velocity won, they would have been one of the finalists. So keeping that in mind, let's look at the final league game. Trailblazers versus Supernovas. Remember, Supernovas will have had a longer break given that they played yesterday and the next match is on Saturday. So coming to you, Gouher, will that be a case of kind of a tournament that India had in the T20 World Cup? They finished their league games. They had 4 or 5 days break ahead of the semi-finals, which eventually got washed off, and then the finals. And Supernovas, mind you, are in a similar stage. So is that an issue for Supernovas?
No, I think that they'll take it in a positive way because they're coming from a loss, and they've had 2 days to recover and discuss. The captain and the coach must have had their plans ready for the practice sessions and for the individual players, what to do in the next game, and they've had this extra time of going into the nets and rectifying. I won't say much of a time, but little time or 1 or 2 net sessions. To go in and rectify the mistakes and plan their batting lineup, or make 1 or 2 changes in their playing 11 to get a game or to get a win in the next, because Trailblazers is coming on with a huge win from today's game, so it's going to be a bit of a tough situation for Trailblazers Supernovas to go in the second game and win it for them to be in the contest for the final.
Gee, it's tough for these schedule makers, isn't it? You give back-to-back games for Velocity, and here we are discussing whether that's a rough deal. And you give Supernovas a longer break, and we are yet like, is that necessary? Is that good? Is that bad? But Ananya, what do you think? Because Harmanpreet Kaur has experienced this long break. What happens in a long break in a big tournament like we again spoke about the World Cup final? So, is that some experience that you can take forward for this tournament?
I mean, I don't think they'll be too worried about it. I think because they've got quite a few senior players in the side. Shashikala herself, I'm sure Harman and Chamari will be happy, to have an extra day off to kind of allow their bodies to recover, and then of course hit the nets and probably work on a few things that they would want to, and also formulate tactics for the next game. I think we saw that it was the tactics towards the end of the game that hurt Supernovas, and that's possibly something that, having watched today, seen what Sophia Eccleston, Jhulan Goswami, and all the others are doing, will probably help them formulate plans for their game against Trailblazers. And I don't think they'll be too worried about this break, because at the end of the day, this is it's not going to hurt the momentum because they lost. It's not something that's I think in the World Cup there was a case of India winning consistently. They had gotten into a bit of a rhythm, and then they had that break, and then there was the rain. So that is probably a halt in momentum. But here they're coming off a loss. They have a chance to recoup, probably figure out what they want to do going into the next game, and they are an experienced side. I think that's the difference between this Supernovas team and that Indian team. That this group they have a very good bowling lineup, a bunch of very experienced bowlers. So I think that's going to be the difference. That they just have to figure out what their plans are going to be for the next game, and I think they'll use this extra time for that.
Supernovas had left out Anuja Patil, Arundhati Reddy, Ayushi Soni, and Muskan Malik out of the first match. Gouher, do you see any of these getting a game in the second match on Saturday?
Yes, I think they could try Anuja and Arundhati Reddy both in the next game, knowing that a couple of players have not actually done played out the ability. Maybe Pooja Vastrakar or someone. It's harsh on those players, because of course they're coming back, and you can't judge them with just one performance or the first game that they could not do well. It's pretty harsh. Then you don't have too many games or too many matches, so to try out things. So I think Harman would probably think over it and get at least one change in her playing 11, and probably change her batting order, because she needs to probably change her get her middle order stronger, because they're up front, like Trailblazers, they're very strong with the top order, but she needs to get her a middle order stronger. I think Arundhati is a medium pace all-rounder who can bat and who can hit those sixes, where she's shown that in the Challenger Trophy and India A, where she batted pretty well and got those runs, and she can clear the boundary. And Anuja can chip in with runs and those off spinners that drift away from right-hand batters. I think probably this could be the possibility in the next game if they want to change anyone in the 11.
We'll move towards your viewers' comments after one more point, where Trailblazers, remember we were asked in the mid-innings break as to which middle order is stronger. We couldn't answer that because Trailblazers' middle order wasn't tested at all. Gouher, after the kind of game that Trailblazers have had today, what are the areas that they really need to work on? Is that a problem for them?
I don't think we've seen much of their batting, of course, with just staging 48 runs. But Richa Ghosh has probably showed what she's capable of. As a 17-year-old youngster, she looked very confident right from the first ball that she faced. Though she took a bit of time to settle in, She showed us what she's capable of, and she got that boundary of. And also that six of the very experienced Ekta Best, who's known to dry up the runs for the batters. But she's shown that confidence, and she has given her captain, that fair thing for her to back her up and back her batting skills. And she was pretty decent with her keeping as well. I would say she was not tested much, but then she was pretty decent.
Yes, how could you not? How could you forget the six that she hit against Ekta Bist, who you had back to come good in this innings as well. But Ananya, one final thought from you about Trailblazers. What are the areas you think that they'll have to work on? Remember, 9 wickets. Then everybody work for double digits.
Yeah, well, they weren't really tested today, so I don't think I don't think they'll read too much into this. They probably would have watched the opening game, formulate their plans as a bowling unit and a batting team as to how they're going to counter, supernovas. And again, there was so little for them to do today. They didn't. All they had to do was bowl the ball on the stumps, and velocity just seemed to self-destruct. So they weren't really tested today, but I think they'll probably go back, maybe look at probably tactics that they need to look at for the next game, and whether they need to change up their batting order according to the conditions, whether they need to bring someone else up. Can Dottin be moved down, or do they want to give her that top slot to kind of give her time to play herself in and then explode?
Right, 4 wickets for Sophie Eccleston, 2 each for Goswami and Rajeshwari Gaikwad as Trailblazers win by 9 wickets. Time for you viewers to get involved. Let's take some questions. What's the first one? Vijayam2137, the username asks, at BCCI wanted velocity to lose and lose badly. It seems such a pathetic scheduling. We've talked enough about scheduling. Ananya, your final thoughts on the scheduling part, because remember, as a scheduler, you can't please everybody, because here we are talking about longer breaks, quicker matches. The final thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was probably harsh on them considering the gap between games was less than 12 hours, but there's really nothing you can do. I guess it's a no-win situation. When your tournament is probably scheduled around a men's tournament, it's hard to, I suppose, get anything right.
Right. The next one is from Hemant Ray. It'll be nice to have 4 teams with double round-robin format with all the foreign players. This must continue at least 2 years, then full-fledged 6 teams IPL. We've always had this chorus grow for having a full-fledged women's IPL, isn't it, Gouher? And your views on this?
I think, yeah, probably. Yeah, I think there's maybe a year or two where we can have a full-fledged IPL. Not but because the players are not ready because of the COVID situation that has hurt women's cricket a bit. Because we've had a wonderful final where there was a full-packed stadium. So then after a break, I think BCCI has done a great job to get this IPL in Dubai and for women's. But yes, next, the more the teams, the more the matches, the better it is for the players, especially the younger ones who they're knocking at the doors, and they have the more opportunities to also for the captains to try out younger players and give them opportunities to knock at the doors and get ready for the international league.
Right. There's Prajeen Prasad who says, again, some competition for Tanya Bhatia, Richa with the gloves. What a moment. Aggressor wicketkeeper for India. Ananya, do you think that Richa is actually, like we were talking about this in the build-up to the match, in fact, as to whether Nusrat Parveen will feel left out or behind in the three-way race where we counted Nusrat, Sushma Verma and Tanya Bhatia. But here's Richa Ghosh today with her wicket-keeping skills Is she the fourth competitor in the race?
I mean, I guess she is. I guess she can be like a Tammy Beaumont is for England. Whenever Amy Jones or Sarah Taylor went down, Tammy Beaumont was thrown the gloves. So probably Richa Ghosh can be someone like that. I mean, even in the T20 World Cup, we saw her sometimes keeping in practice. So that's probably an area of her game that they want to develop. They're probably thinking of her as someone that they can have waiting in the wings if anything happens to Tanya, because she has a place in the side as a pure batter. So if she can add to that skill set, it only helps the Indian team.
Right. Here's the last one. Sumed Naik chips in. Any interesting matchups to look forward to from the last game? Supernovas versus Trailblazers. Gouher, are there any key battles you look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, Julan Goswami opening the bowling to Chamari Atapattu would be a great, two experienced campaigners. They faced each other in the past, playing for their respective countries. So I think that's going to be a great battle we're going to see, because this is not a wicket where Chamari Atapattu also or India under-dotting. They're taking a little time to settle in before they explode, because that's a kind of track they have. And Julan Goswami is not, going to give it away easy for all the experience and for all the consistency she has had in all these years. So that's going to be one of the key battle in the next game.
Right, Julan versus Chamari Atapattu. We'll find out what happens on Saturday, as it's a wrap from day 2 and match 2 of Women's T20 Challenge 2020 on Avnir presents The Outside View, part by WTF Sports. See you on Saturday at 7 p.m. IST. Take care.